Hello and welcome to the Absolute Beginner Guitar Lesson Series. My name is Oliver and today's lesson is lesson number 2. If I were to play a note on a guitar and then play a different note on the same guitar, there would be a difference in pitch between the two notes. One of the notes would be higher in pitch than the other, and the other would be lower in pitch. The difference in pitch between two notes is known as an interval. And an interval can be used to represent a very small difference in pitch, and it can also be used to represent a large difference in pitch. If we're going to talk about intervals, I think what we want to do is we want to boil them down to their basic fundamental level. In the Western system of music, the smallest interval is what's known as a half step. I also would like to point this out on a guitar. If I were to play a note on the guitar, let's say I played the note on the 5th fret of the low E string, the note right next to it on the same string would be 1/2 step away. So what I'm saying is, if I were to play the note at the 5th fret on the E string, the note on the 6th fret of the E string would be 1/2 step higher. And also the note on the 4th fret of the E string would be 1/2 step lower than the original note. And this sort of lays out how the guitar is set up interval-wise. The guitar is broken down into frets, and from one fret to the next fret, on the very next fret on the same string, is a half step intervals. To go back to our guitar example, if I were to play a note at the 5th fret on the low E string, and then let's say I were to play another note at the 7th fret on that same string, there would be a difference of 2 frets between the first note and the second note. And as I said, a difference of 1 fret along the same string on a guitar is a half step interval. So therefore, if we go 2 frets, that's 2 half step intervals. And that would be known as a whole step. So that's the second level of understanding, is to see that half step intervals can be combined to create whole step intervals. And also that half step and whole step intervals can be combined to create larger intervals. As you can see, I have the musical alphabet starting on the letter A and proceeding to the next letter A. The first thing I'd like to do is I would like to introduce the concept of an octave. What I'll say is, if you look at this A at the beginning of the line, and then you look at this other A at the other end of the line, our eyes can tell us that that note is A. But our knowledge of music theory also tells us that this A is higher in pitch than this A. And that difference in pitch between this A and this one here is what's known as an octave. I would like to analyze the intervals between the notes of the musical alphabet. When I say that, I mean I would like to analyze the interval between the A and the B, and the B and the C and the D, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze the interval between a note of the musical alphabet and a note that immediately follows it in the musical alphabet. So at this point, I would like to provide you with some additional information. So please write what I have here, and I'm going to provide some additional information. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that the interval between the notes A and B, and I'm just going to draw this little V here to indicate that's the interval between the notes A and B, is what's known as a whole step. And I'm just going to indicate that with a W. And the first thing that I've noticed is that there are a whole lot more W's than H's. So there appears to be more whole steps here than half steps. And I think more importantly, what I can see is that the interval between the notes B and C is a half step. And I can also see that the interval between the notes E and F is also a half step. And everything else is whole steps. So by observing these two exceptions between the notes B and C and E and F, where the interval is a half step, all the other intervals are whole steps. The importance of this information is that this is how we're going to find notes on the guitar. So this is why it's important to sort of understand what we have here. The reality is the information that we have here is somewhat critical. If we want to find notes on a guitar, this is going to be the key, is knowing the intervals between the various notes. Put in your time, put in your work, and I hope to see you back here for lesson 3.